Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another podcast interview. On today's show, for the first time, I have David Steinberg. He's the CEO and founder of Foureyes. David, welcome to the show.
Brian, thank you for having me. Great to connect.
You know, I have been looking forward to this interview because for years I've seen your product being advertised in OEM co-op programs. I'm hearing dealers rave about the platform, and it has constantly been evolving. So let's just start off with a simplified elevator summary. If a dealer was in an elevator with you and said, hey, what can Foureyes do for my dealership? How would you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Foureyes has really existed in the sales enablement category, which in automotive is a pretty empty category, mainly because getting the data to truly do, sales enablement sits on top of your CRM, it sort of sits on top of your marketing. And how do you help your team become smarter and sell better, increase close rates, essentially.
Right.
So we're a sales enablement platform. With that, I think, one of the things we released last year and we're really excited about is our unified data platform. And so much of what you're talking about with CDPs is correlates to what we're doing on the unified data platform.
So what's the difference between your unified data platform, which is specific to automotive, and say a traditional CDP?
Well, I mean, a traditional CDP is really a marketing system, right? It's pushing audiences, it's pushing data around. I would say, I'm sensitive to the fact that it's really interesting in automotive that auto dealers, sales is an intersection between marketing, inventory, and sales process. Yet why, when you walk the floor of NADA, why is 95% of the conversation we have about marketing? It's like a disease. It's like the wrong.
We're addicted to the drug.
We're addicted to the drug. I mean, and part of the thing to understand is that, if you're private equity and you're investing in software companies, marketing is the easiest way for me to take money from an auto dealership without requiring anything of them, right? I just get to say, oh, look at what we did for you. And we just get to take the money. When you talk about sales process, you talk about working on their whole system, it's more of a partnership. It's more of a relationship. And I think that when you talk to our dealers who love us, that's part of what they're sensing is we're just more embedded in their operations. But I think that the challenge has been in automotive is that the data is so siloed that understanding that relationship between sales process, marketing, and inventory has been very, very difficult. And I think dealers have predominantly given up on that. And we're saying, no, there is an opportunity right now to actually understand that and make business decisions much faster. Understand, you can look at two stores who look like they have the same problem, and one has a marketing problem and one has a sales process problem.
But they're both not hitting their sales objectives, and it's not easy to know why.
It's not easy to know why. And so our big goal is how do you make it easier to know why, fix problems much faster, and really sort of give dealers back the control, that in automotive, we were talking about this before, but why is every tool $2,000, $2,500 a month? When you go outside automotive, you can find a lot of that technology for $40 a month, $12 a month. And part of the reason is getting the underlying data is so complicated in automotive for reasons of data rights and data problems that every company is charging thousands of dollars to do what should be pretty basic stuff. My big picture goal is making that much, much simpler for auto dealers and groups.
So, David, let's dive into a use case. When I recently used the word sales enablement, and when I've talked to dealers about it, sometimes they think that is training. I look at it really as the people, process, technology, and insights or business intelligence to increase sales effectiveness and close more opportunities. So when a dealer's listening and said, hey, we're really in the sales enablement, we're giving dealers more insights in their data to do more, could you give me a use case that your platform provides the dealers, which is the most popular use case, so that dealers who are not using Foureyes would say, man, I want to be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest low-hanging fruit example is every day on your inventory, you're making changes. And in a perfect world, your sales team would be communicating those changes to the customers. Hey, we just dropped the price. We have this new inventory. We have this here. But that just doesn't happen at scale, right? You look at the phone logs, you look at the BDCs, you look at the information they're putting out. They're just touching a fraction of the people with the information that's relevant. So a lot of the work, like the incentives and the rebates and the discounting, those are trees that are falling in the forest and no one hears. So
Right.
Like a simple application is, well, let's push that information out. So when you drop the price, when you change information, I, as the consumer, am seeing that and am getting pushed that directly to me. And then in turn, as I interact with it, a salesperson's being brought in to be there at the right time. One of the crazy things we're seeing in our underlying data is high close rates correlate to actual real human sales outreach at the right time. Like what bugs me in a lot of the messaging that's going on in automotive, it's all about like automation. Automation's important only to the point of getting the salesperson involved efficiently when they should be. Because at the end of the day, high close rates have salespeople talking to customers.
Right.
And so, too many times we discount that step. And that's the secret between a 7% close rate and a 16% close rate.
David, you mentioned that dealers are paying significantly higher software costs across the enterprise because of data access. Here's a couple things that I've found that, I've tried to communicate, but I am not seeing the dealer community rise up and ask for change. Let me give you just a few examples. Number one, APIs. The CRM companies say, yeah, we have APIs, or DMS companies, we have APIs, but you can't get all the data out, number one. Number two, hey, yeah, we can export that data, but that data might not be useful in any way because it's a spaghetti mess of data. Or I recently heard that eLeads has a 25-character limit on the length of an email address. So if it's longer, it gets cut off. And I'm like, what? I mean, in 2023, we can't access all of the data. We can't access the calculations or the logic behind calculations that are presented. We're getting data that is naturally corrupted from the source. I mean, what's it going to take for dealers to realize that their first-party data is theirs, and if they want to leverage it in a CDP, if they want to leverage it in a personalized communication workflow, they shouldn't have to literally reinvent the wheel to get it. What's going to have to change?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great, you're opening up a really interesting can of worms that is actually probably at the heartbeat of fixing a lot of the lack of innovation in automotive. Even if you look at digital retailing and what essentially is sort of a failure of digital retailing, we all thought it would be a lot more than what it is now, currently pushing a lot more transactions through. At the bottom, that's a data problem, that they do not have the right data to be able to conduct these transactions 100% online efficiently. I think that if you go to, like CRM, DMS inventory, that's filing cabinet data. And filing cabinet data, when I watch every CRM speak, they talk about you own your data, they tell the dealer they own the data, but behind the scenes to the vendors, they're making a completely different arrangement. So behind the scenes, they're going, hey, come into our certified program. And by the way, when you come into our certified program, you agree only to get the data from our certified program. But by the way, it's only 30% of the data. So now you have applications being built on partial data, on incomplete data, on wrong data. And then the dealer's wondering why that $2,500 a month solution that they were so excited about just underwhelmed them. And at its core, it was the wrong data. They didn't have the right access to the data. So I think like the easy solution from my perspective would be the same way. And I think, you were instrumental in this. I think NADA was instrumental. A few years ago, everyone started saying, dealers need to care about how their vendors are protecting their data. and data deletion policies and data retention policies. All of that started being pushed onto us vendors in a really good way, right? So like we're SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, and we're doing all sorts of processes to make sure we're protecting the dealer's data, us as well as other vendors. That's fantastic. The next question to ask is, what does ownership really mean? So if I'm a dealer group, I would be pushing to my filing cabinet companies, my CRMs, my DMS, my inventory, real clear language that states, I own the data. You cannot restrict access to any vendor that I want to use my data. So restricting access would mean giving them 30% of the data and not allowing them to access the other 70%. And that's happening everywhere. I think that, we were joking earlier that the whole term hostile integration is a made up term that was made up by CDK and Reynolds. But the reality is that you cannot get all the data out of a CRM currently in any CRM unless you have at least some of a hostile integration.
And David, what's kind of crazy about all of this is that as we're moving to create a unified customer record in a CDP to help with activation, to help with marketing, to help with personalized communication, it would be crazy if this just was delayed in significant ways because of the lack of innovation in APIs or the lack of full data access. I'll give you an example, that I heard from some of the large dealer groups in my CDP study. They would be like, hey, when we want to do a historical pull, we collapsed one of the CRM's data servers. I mean, what do you mean? I said, but we just did historical pull and the entire data center, servers went on the blink. I'm like, you're kidding me. It's like, yeah, they told us we can't do a large historical pull. And I'm like, wow. I mean, hey, I understand load balancing servers fix problems, and I also know you can throttle. Like, it doesn't have to be done in 5 minutes. But I think no one's been thinking in a bigger picture outside of automotive that we have to have a big data framework. We have to be able to fully connect all our data sources. We have to unify that data. We have to visualize it. We have to activate it. And if the primary building blocks of automotive software are still, light years behind, I wonder what impact that's going to have on data unification.
Well, that's a really interesting point. And one of the things where I think we've done a really good job with our unified data platform is that there is an opportunity. Like, I always think like true innovation happens when opportunity and circumstance align. Like there's the great story of like Facebook and MySpace, that the reason why Facebook, MySpace was the predominant social media platform before Facebook. But the reason why Facebook came in and sort of kicked their ass was because the circumstances at the time was like cloud servers were just coming around. So MySpace was 3 years older and they were still managing all their own servers with their own resources and their own people. And Facebook was able to come in and outsource all of that to manage servers. And as a result, their own people were focusing on the product and they had much more scalability. I think right now, the opportunity and circumstance from my perspective that dealers aren't even talking about is that data warehousing is becoming so much better and easier to share and move data in really amazing ways. And dealers are, and so like in our unified data platform, we collect and connect all the data across the CRM, website, inventory, and bring it all into a very organized data warehouse that can also be pushed into a database, and we build visualizations off that. But in turn, that allows them to connect a outside automotive CDP to that data, where if you go talk to Treasure Data or Telium or any of those people, they can't get to your data. So what the UDP allows them to do is a very easy connection to say, oh, now we can connect to this data warehouse and run our CDP.
Right.
And
what I'm finding is more and more dealer groups, knowing the limitations of the APIs or access, have really pushed hard on the DMS and CRM vendors to create a data lake where everything comes in on a daily basis, and then they do what they want because they know the current tools and access rights don't allow them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think things will get a lot cheaper in automotive when you can make getting the data not the hurdle for every software company.
That is so true. So David, let's talk about it. You are unifying all the website activities with the CRM activities and the inventory. You didn't mention DMS. You didn't mention phone calls. What other potential additions to your UDP do you have planned? And do you ever see being able to take that data to push out better marketing audiences as some of the hybrid platforms have already offered to the dealer community?
Yeah, so two things. One, we do bring in phone call data, and we're in the process of making it simpler if you're bringing in if you're using a different phone call dynamic number insertion system to Call Review or Car Wars to bring that data in as well.
Okay, that's great. That's good to hear.
Yeah, and then DMS is also coming. We do currently have clients using our platform and joining DMS data into that, but they're doing that on their side, so they don't have any of the costs. But activations pushing it. One of the again, going back to my core problem, we do allow for activations. We will allow you to push that data. And, we have people using our unified data platform. They're pushing it to Facebook. They're pushing it to Google custom audiences. We're building out right now an integration with just email service providers just so they can easily use a MailChimp or something like that to go two-way communicate. They can push emails and also write them back into their CRM. But I think it's important, Foureyes is never going to do the marketing. And that's by design. Right, we're going to enable better marketing, but I don't want to do the marketing, and that's because I think it's a conflict of interest. I think when we start doing the marketing, you get into self-reporting. You get into all of a sudden.
That's right. You can't be the single source of truth for engagement tracking, conversion tracking, and say that your marketing is the best of any vendor on the market.
Yeah, and I think it's just a conflict of interest. I think that we have to look at how to make data more efficient for other marketers to use. So our roadmap is really about how to enable other marketers versus how do we do the marketing for you.
Great. So if I understand your direction, your strategic direction, would you see yourself for a dealer group, large dealer group who wants to unify all their data and use the CDP? Do you see the Foureyes UDP as a contributor to the CDP and also a BI tool to guide the activation of that unified customer data? How do you see it working together?
Exactly. I mean, you said it better than I did. I mean, we have big dealer groups who are using our UDP to load it into a CDP. And the CDP is doing the activations, but the CDP could not get the data. And so what we allowed them to do was to get the actual data and made it really simple for them. But I think that the real value, and again, we were joking with this before, but doing Facebook custom audiences, doing Google custom audiences, pushing data around that way is not going to move the stock price of Lithia. It's not going to move the stock price of Sonic, right?
Right.
It's going to make it's going to make negligible difference in their sales. But providing them the business intelligence where their field teams, their people, their GMs can make faster decisions to solve the right problems. That's where so much waste in automotive currently is. I mean, we will see accounts where they've spent 6 months underperforming on a source and had no idea. And
yes. And think about this. I agree with you. I think marketing is not the big thing. I think it's customized communication, one-to-one communication, personalization to make the customer's experience better. I think that's where the big money's sitting. But most of it's sitting, as you said, in the marketing side.
In the marketing, and really it's about how do we enable people to be more successful, more efficient, right? And it's not part of enablement is saying you look at like you can look at the structure of a big auto group and go, okay, so the GMs and the corporate entity cannot see what's happening at the store and that intersection between sales process, marketing, inventory, and they're just guessing. I mean, how many times do you talk to people and they essentially say they're just trusting their gut? And these are pretty big businesses to be running just trusting your gut.
Well, especially with all the consolidation that's been going, the large acquisition trends that we've seen over the last few years. These people have data scientists. These people have, folks with advanced visions on operations. And that's why I think, products like Foureyes brings advanced technology to a single dealer group, a mid-sized dealer group, or a large dealer group, right? It's the same thing. Bring that business intelligence forward to whoever really wants to use it.
Oh yeah, and like data literacy has become a real thing. I had this really rewarding experience last week where one of our big auto groups was using our data and showing us the visualizations that they were building off of it, and they were doing things with our data that I didn't even think about. And they were, because they were looking at it through their lens and saying, well, this is what's important to us. We really want to understand store performance this way. And they were building visualizations that allowed them to get in there and day over day understand and measure store performance the way that was important to them. And it was beautiful. It was sort of the dream of why we designed Foureyes the way we did.
Love it. Love it. Well, this conversation of leveraging the dealer's first party data, which you have, activating it to be able to be visualized, to create smarter business decisions. I have to say, that's where the big money, the big shifts in revenue will be. And I'm glad that you saw that and not just join in another way to create another marketing campaign that is hard to measure. If dealers wanted a time frame, like, hey, if you install Foureyes on my website, how long does it take for enough data to gather that I could start making smarter business decisions? What would you tell them?
Well, I think we always, as a company, we always are very into the time of onboarding, and onboarding being very quick. So, our systems are getting better and better. Like, I think, when we generally onboard, we take the 90 days of data and look at it. So it's quick, it's fast to look at. I think that a dealer should expect better intelligence within the first 30 days.
Oh, that's great. I love that. I love that. Now, if a dealer wanted to get more information, a demo on the platform, so they don't get confused with any other companies with Foureyes in it, what's the best website to lock in that demo?
Yeah, Foureyes.io.
Oh, let me repeat that. That's Foureyes.io. I remember I first put in Foureyes.com because, everyone thinks about that. And I was like, hey, that's not their logo.
I know, those bastards. We've tried to buy it from them for years, but no, I know. Foureyes.io.
Beautiful, beautiful. For the dealers who are listening to today's conversation, this is one in a number of conversations we have leading up to the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference in Austin, Texas, which is going to be held May 21, 22, and 23. And we just announced an addition of a fourth day, May 24th, just focused on GA4 training for automotive professionals. I want to encourage everyone who's interested in first-party data management and true BI tools to help them make smarter operational staffing, training, process decisions to come out the DMSC. This isn't just about the basics. Run a Facebook campaign, run a Google campaign. We're elevating the conversation to how do we own, manage, activate our first-party data, along with some of the other topics of marketing automation, GA4, modern sales process. It's all part of the DMSC conference. So go to digitalmarketingstrategies.org to check out the full agenda, get your tickets. It will sell out. And this year, after 10 years in Napa, we're bringing the conference to beautiful city of Austin, Texas. That means that the tickets are more affordable, airfare is more affordable. So make sure you come out for that. And if this is the first time you're listening to one of my podcast interviews, you should know that there are dozens of great interviews with automotive leaders, tech inspiration, and, well, future thinking professionals that have a heart for the auto industry and want things to move forward. David, before we sign off today, what's one word of encouragement you would like to give dealers regarding the value of their first-party data when it's properly visualized?
I think that there's, the promises of being able to run a better sales process and having the data to do that, it's so close. It's like the opportunity is now. There's so many advancements in data visualization and data access. You mentioned like data literacy and the data analysts that they're now hiring. There's so much opportunity there. What we say is get your teams out of what we call collect and connect hell, which is they're just trying to get the data and get them into the visualize and activate mode. And that's where you're going to see the big lifts. And it's exciting and it's fun. And I think, Brian, you're doing really impressive work on on educating on what the problems are. My team's been sort of gobbling up all the stuff you put out because you're synthesizing it in really great ways. So listen to what you're saying. It's great. And I think we're in an age of new opportunity.
Yeah, amen to that. Amen to that. Well, David, thanks once again for joining me. And I look forward to seeing the growth and evolution of Foureyes and your unified data platform in the weeks and months ahead. Everyone, thank you for listening. I'll catch you next time on a specific automotive interview. Don't forget to go to your Apple Podcast channel, Google Play, SoundCloud, or any of the popular places where you listen to podcasts and listen to the rest of the interviews in this new Driving Towards Digital Marketing Strategies Conference this May. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.